conspiracy to commit murder.
All right, y'all, you're locked in here to the Midwest Mayhem.
I still always want to show up, and that's just, I have not lost any passion for the job.
Welcome to the Midwest Mayhem podcast with your host Tyler and Lochie. This is where small town stories, wild headlines, and real conversations come together. We also shine a light on first responders, veterans, and on mental health. Because every voice deserves to be heard. This is the Midwest Mayhem podcast.
I've been an open book about mental health.
From a federal prison.
Fake leader hiding behind the title. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Midwest Mayhem podcast. I'm Tyler.
And I'm Lochie.
And you're listening to Midwest Mayhem. Today we have a very special guest joining us, Judge Michael Randazzo from Iron County.
Yes, he is the Circuit Judge of Division 2 of the 42nd Judicial Circuit of the state of Missouri.
Well, that leads me into my next question. How are we doing today, Lochie?
I'm okay, and you?
Well, it's Sunday, and it's a little bit later than when we normally record.
It is, and it's a lot cooler than when we normally record.
It is a whole lot cooler, and the sun's not beating in this ever so wonderful window inside of my makeshift recording studio here. So we are going to give Mike a call here in just about 5 or 6 minutes. He's going to do an interview with us. I'm super excited. Are you excited?
I am too, mainly because he is a very local person who has a very important job. Very,
very important. I am very excited. He is from Bismarck. He's from Bismarck, correct?
Yes.
So from Bismarck, Lochie and I were both on the Bismarck Fire Department. If you've listened to other episodes, you know that. So Bismarck's kind of a little historical town, if you want my opinion. Lochie actually lives in Bismarck.
Yes, a little railroad town that used to flourish with the railroad. In fact, I can remember back in the 80s, Michael Dukakis, when he was running for president, came through at Bismarck.
How neat. That's kind of like Irondale from where I'm from. Jesse James stayed there once, so I'm pretty sure he robbed the train after he stayed there. That matches Irondale's theme, but hey, you know how that goes. So we're going to be doing the interview with Mike. It's going to be really good. One real quick thing before we get going here. We do have some Midwest Mayhem merch for sale. Lochie, what do you think of that?
Yes, I'm definitely getting the hat.
Definitely a hat. We do have snapbacks and fitted hats, $20 a piece for the hats. We've got hoodies. They're both up on our website. They're up on our website and Facebook page. If you would like to take a look at them, the links to order are on our Facebook page as well. Just find the post, click the link, and it'll take you right to the order form. And the directions for payment is also on there. So give them a check out. Give us an order. I'd love to see everybody repping the Midwest Mayhem merch. And on the hoodies, it's actually a new logo that I designed.
Yeah, and I will get a hoodie too. But
yeah,
I'm super excited about a hat.
Yeah, Lochie's she's got a Jeep, so
yeah,
Lochie's Jeep.
Have to have a Jeep hat.
A Jeep hat. I was trying to be like Lochie. I don't sound that good.
And we're definitely off because I sound more like Marge Simpson's sisters in the afternoon than I do in our normal morning recordings.
Yeah, the afternoons are a little rough for us. Lochie either hasn't had a nap or she's had too much of a nap, and I need a nap. So coming up here on Voices of Valor, I got that one right. Mm-hmm. So we do have another guest coming up, Sadie Harlan from Washington County Ambulance District. We just have a knack for Washington County, apparently.
Exactly.
I would like some other people to jump on here. So if you're listening to this and you're with a different entity, I would love to have you. Anyway, Sadie's going to be joining us in November. The first couple weeks in November, we still have some dates to iron out on that. But we'll let you all know when that comes up. So just keep your eyes glued to our Facebook page, and we'll keep going with it. Another cool thing we got coming up is our Halloween special episode. I am super excited for that one.
I am too. And we took... because Winry was here with us the last time we recorded. Yeah. Well, we had went up and we went through Spirit Halloween, and I was scaring her. Of course, I was scared myself, but it was so awesome being able to scare her like my dad and grandpa and uncles used to scare us. So I'm excited about the Halloween episode.
I'm surprised she wasn't scared when she was here, but you know how that goes.
She's used to being around
larger people. I'm a very large man, so you know how that goes. All right, we're about 3 minutes away from giving Mike a call. Lochie and I have both read this book. Mike was nice enough to send us over a copy of his book. I thought it was pretty good. What about you, Lochie?
Well, now, he did send it over, but I had to order it because being an old person, I like the feel of a book in my hand. And it was actually something when I saw that he had published it that I wanted to get. So it's always neat to read someone else's story, because if you read it or once he starts talking to us, there were questions that I had that I always heard being from Bismarck. So there are a lot of things that, were answered in his book. And it was, to me, it was pretty risky, some of the information he's included in the book.
And I think we had a listener actually send us a question asking something like that. It's in the back of our papers here, but we'll get to that with Mike. And it was very neat to see somebody from Bismarck write a book.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, it's just absolutely neat, in my opinion. I was very excited when I seen I'm friends with him on Facebook, so when I seen he posted, I was like, holy crap, I'm going to have to read that.
Yep.
But I read the digital version. Lochie is actually here with her softback version in her hands that she ordered off of Amazon. I will be posting that link because Mike sent it to us. We would love to help promote his book, and so everybody can read it. We'll post that up on our Facebook page the day this episode drops. So if you're listening to this, go to our Facebook page. It should be on there. And get you a copy of his book. I believe yesterday he had a book signing at Bismarck Coffee Company.
I knew that there was one coming up, but I didn't know when it was. I was busy yesterday. I wasn't even in town, so.
I believe it was yesterday in Bismarck, if I remember.
I knew that he had a date planned.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, that's the main street in Bismarck is changing. I think Brad Brown, there's several people. I'm not for sure the guy that owns the Bismarck Coffee, but rumor has it there's a restaurant coming in that is seafood based, and so it's changing. If you go through the four-way over there at Bismarck, it looks completely different. I
need to take a drive through there. I haven't been to the old Bismarck in quite a while.
Yeah, and the main street, the buildings, they've kept all the integrity of the bricks and stuff, but oh my gosh, it looks good on Main Street.
Bismarck Main Street, go check it out.
Yeah.
I've always loved Bismarck. It's such a little historical town. Well, it's 4:00. We better give Judge a call. I don't think we need to keep him waiting any longer. So we're gonna give Judge a call here, Mr. Mike. I believe is what he would like to be called. So we'll give Mike a call here, and we'll see if we can get him on the phone with us. So give us just a second here. Hello, Mike. Are you with us?
I am.
Hey, can you hear us both okay?
Hello, Mike.
I can hear you both.
All right, Mike, you're on with us here, the Midwest Mayhem podcast. We are so excited to have you here with us, and we loved your book. It was really good.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate the invite. I appreciate being on, but I'm not a writer, and so any critiques of the writing style, I hope we can overlook some of those sort of rookie writer mistakes.
Well, but there's nothing wrong with that, Mike, because honestly, you told your story, and I actually used to be a teacher. Now I'm an EMS, so that was one of my critiques that everybody'd always tell me. You write just the way you talk, and sometimes I think that just puts you into being the human that you are, and it tells your story. I mean, your story was definitely told in this book.
Well, and I appreciate that. Stylistically, that was my hope, was that I did it, in a way that people that have, that know me or that have heard me talk about some of these things, that it was exactly the same way I would do it conversationally, not either, talking down or talking in a way that's not natural.
Right. Well, if you don't mind, we're just going to kind of jump right into some stuff. But kind of, if you don't mind, give our listeners a little bit of background. I know a few things about you. I know Tyler does, just because we're the small town people and saw your signs. And I know some of your nieces, nephews, family, whatever. But can you give us maybe, and Tyler, you want to kind of...
Yeah, I actually went to Unitech Trades School with your stepson, Jacob. He was a really cool guy to hang out with. But that's kind of how I know, and I actually worked at Bismarck Subway back when Bismarck had a Subway. So I think that's how I know you.
Yeah, definitely. So just, a little bit about me. I live in Iron County. I haven't lived anywhere more than 15 miles from here my entire life. When I was young, I went to Arcadia Valley School District, and when we were 9, we moved to Bismarck. Went to Bismarck through high school, graduated from Bismarck. After I graduated Bismarck, went to college at UMSL, and commuted from Bismarck back and forth to Normandy every day. And after I graduated from, got into law school, went to law school at St. Louis University, commuted during that time too, and passed the bar exam and became a practicing lawyer after that. Not long after that, I was hired as an assistant public defender at the Farmington office and worked as a public defender for about 9 months, almost a year, actually, but
Which
had some sort
do you
of...
care if I interrupt
Yeah,
you
go ahead.
with saying that?
Yeah, go ahead,
That
please.
was actually one of the things that I thought was interesting that you talked about, because I'm always very curious, and there's a battle doing my job as well. And you have your moral compass, and as a public defender, you had to defend people that you didn't necessarily agree with what their actions. But I found that part, and Tyler and I had a conversation, and then I read that section. I was very impressed because you chose to walk away from that and go a different route in the court system. So, that was something that I admire you for that, because in our jobs, I go into a home, what sometimes people are doing. It is not definitely on my moral compass, but I am obligated as a human being and as my job to do that. But I found that part very interesting. And if you want to share a little bit on, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that was just something that I wanted to make reference with you, that I admired that you did do that. And based upon, and if you'll tell the audience your reason why you did leave.
Yeah, absolutely. And don't feel bad about interrupting me. Lawyers need interrupted a lot. They're very long-winded. So this kind of my transition from public defender to prosecutor, it was sort of an epiphany. I went to law school thinking I was going to be a defense attorney. That's all I ever wanted to do. I thought, I was going to go defend people when the government was picking on them, and right a bunch of wrongs, defend people who had been wrongly accused. And in reality, at the public defender's office, most of the people that I defended were guilty of something.
Right.
And so morally, I started having somewhat of a dilemma. I had young children at home at that time, and I was being appointed to represent people through the public defender's office who had done some pretty egregious things to children.
Right.
Specifically in the book, I talk about the one story, and that's the only actual case I talk about in the whole book, which is sort of shocking to people that, I'm a judge and it has this, this law theme, and I don't talk a lot about cases.
No, you did not.
That's
nope.
pretty intentional, but that case was life-altering for me because I knew that I could no longer be a public defender. I was representing a gentleman who, at that time, was alleged to have tied up a young child in a rolling chair, put him in a straitjacket, duct taped him to the chair, duct taped socks into his mouth, duct taped the socks into his mouth, and left him there for about a 24-hour period of time so he could go get high on meth and party through New Year's Eve.
Right.
Wow.
And it was devastating to me. This child was close to the age of my kid at the time, and in a very real way, I could not wrestle with what would happen if I was successful in defending this guy.
Right.
I had never been to that point satisfied with losing. To be honest, I'm competitive to a fault. If there's a competition,
and that's noted in the book. And if you know any of the Randazzo boys, they're hot on the baseball field and the softball field. So if you really do know Mike, you know that he does not want to lose.
Especially them softball tournaments they used to have up there at the 4th of July thing in Bismarck at the high school. I remember Adam shattered his knee, I think. Your cousin Adam, is that correct?
Yep. Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so you guys have some personal knowledge of it, but I've never been satisfied with losing. I don't care what it is. I'm not built like that. I was oddly okay with losing that case. And I knew that was time I had to do something different.
Right.
So I didn't have a plan. This is all I'd ever planned on doing, was being a defense attorney. So what was I going to do now with this law degree that cost me so much to get? Well, I was lucky enough to get a job as an assistant prosecutor. And so I started prosecuting cases, and I found my real love and sort of my real niche. My real passion was prosecuting cases for a long time. One of the things I got to do as a prosecutor is I got to assist victims in what was the darkest times of their lives, and really listen to victims, because we don't do that often in our system.
No.
Not near.
And we cater to, and probably rightfully so, the Constitution of the United States doesn't set forth protections for victims. It does for defendants. And so we do always have to err on that sort of side of caution when we're dealing with the Constitution. But victims do deserve to have a voice, and they deserve to have a voice in any case where they've been victimized. As a prosecutor, I was always conscientious of that. And so I always took this victim-centered approach to justice, which is pretty unique, really.
Yeah.
Most places, the prosecutor just kind of dictates, like, this is the way it's going to be. This is my case. And I tried to take a little bit of a different approach, and it was very good for my career.
Now, you've taken those experiences and put them in your book, Presiding Over Shadows. How did putting your story on paper change your perspective on experiences you've lived through?
Yes. So writing became therapeutic to me. I don't want to make any qualms about it. I'm not a writer. In fact, to tell a kind of somewhat funny story, but would be a great illustration of that. I wrote the book. I got the book in my hands, and I was so excited. In the book, I talk about one of the teachers that I had, Patty Pinkley.
Yes.
She assisted me relentlessly, was by my side, put her career on the line, actually, at one point, to protect me. And I was just so happy to tell that story and give her a book, like present her with something to say thank you. I wrote it, got my first copy in my hands, and I brought it to her house, handed it to her, and she literally says, "Mike, I'm proud of you.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest with you." Even then, she said, "I have to be honest with you. Out of every student that I've helped through the years, you're the one I thought was least likely to write a book. You were a terrible writer." and you know that type of grounding is good for judges. I'm just being honest. I'm a judge today. Your head tends to swell when you're on the bench. Like people laugh at your jokes more. They think you're funny. They think, in all the ways that it sort of makes you feel sort of infallible, or at least it makes you feel like you're more well-liked or more well-respected than what I think in reality you are.
Well, and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
Well, and I know you talk about in the book, because Tyler and I, we kind of have a platform that goes along with mental health. And I myself have, when I started reading about you suffering from anxiety and different things, I mean, it was like gut wrenching to me, because I know exactly, I had the same kind of issues of, I would worry about my mom taking me to school. Would she have enough gas to get to school? Because she dropped me off in Bonne Terre and she had to drive to Deloge. So I was like, oh my gosh, I know exactly what he's doing. How do you handle that when because that's what blows my mind. You're sitting up there making a judgment. How do you deal with your anxiety and doing that? And how do you stay grounded in facing that?
So as a judge, there's a simple philosophy I live by. And as I've grown as a human, as an adult, I don't care about how people treat me or what people think about me anymore. I really don't. I worry about my kids. And if someone treats my kids well, they're good in my book. And
that's awesome.
That's sort of the lens I view everything that happens in my life at this point through. If I'm on a case and say something happened to my child, if I would be okay with that, something happening to my child, I will rule one way. And if I'm not, I'm going to rule another way. In a criminal case, if I would be okay with this person being released from the jail or not going to prison and being around my child, they're probably going to get probation in a case. But if I would not be okay with my own child being around whatever that was or whatever that person did, they're going to go to prison. And that has done me so well, just keeping that simple philosophy. Is this okay for my own child? Because if I can keep my own kids safe, I can keep everyone else's kids safe at the same time.
That's very good.
You know, if only the world had more people like you, I think the world would be a whole lot better place, man. That is that is just absolute kudos to you, because that is a great outlook.
Well, and with that being said too, one of the things when I started reading your book, I messaged Tyler and I'm like, I cannot believe. Was there any point that when you went to publish this or prior to, with the history of the Randazzo family, were you scared to put some of this in writing and to publish it and to tell some of the stories you told?
So to be real honest with you, yes and no. So what I've done professionally, I have looked murderers in the face and said, I'm sending you to prison for the rest of your life. Having that sort of perspective, lots of bad things could happen to me at any point anyway. There's lots of bad people that I've dealt with, lots of people that have lots of connections. And so, in a way, I kind of live by this philosophy: if something's going to happen, it's going to happen. I don't go out of my way to put myself in harm's risk usually, and I say usually, but this book may have put a little bit of a target on my back from some things. Most of the Randazzo stuff I talk in this book is old enough that we should be able to talk about these things now. 75 years later, it should be okay. Like, I'm talking about a lot of people that I never even met, that I never even, like, they died before I was born. That I think we should be able to do that. But even the more recent stuff. So that's the stuff that I feel like, yeah, maybe. Like, there's some stuff that I write about. There's people that are out there that, realistically, like, if they want to do me harm, they could. And I talk about some situations where there's names brought up.
Yes, and right.
It's,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
And that's what I thought was interesting, because you did, I mean, there was so many generational stories that you told. I mean, you took it right up to the point, like you said, 75 years ago to present day with your children, because you don't have any grandchildren, correctly? Or correct?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay, but there are grandkids, there are great grandkids. I mean, you fulfilled in several generations of this story.
I will tell you, I found your the part in your book where was it your great grandfather that wrestled the bear? Is that correct?
So that was my grandpa. That was my grandfather.
Okay. I did find that interesting. That part blew my mind a little bit.
So a little bit of a backstory to that, which is sort of kind of the inspiration for the book, to be real honest. My grandpa died September of 2022. And I needed some closure with that. Like, I talk about lots of flaws, lots of bad things in the book, but my grandpa was my hero.
I could tell in the way you wrote it.
And a lot of you see that in a lot of today's and younger people, that the older generation really does give an outlook as to how the younger generation comes up. I looked up to my grandpa, my great grandpa. He was still alive when I was old enough to remember him. He died in 2005, so I didn't have a whole lot of time with him. But I can definitely understand where you're coming from when it comes to that aspect.
Yeah. So he was my hero. He was a larger than life guy. And anybody that met him, he was funny. He was charismatic. One thing he was not was humble.
Okay,
and so he thought he could defeat the world. I mean, he realistically, for weeks leading up to this wrestling the bear match, he was talking about how he was going to go in and beat the crap out of this bear. Like, he literally was telling people like he was going to go beat this bear up. And that's kind of the way he approached life. He didn't think there was nothing he could not defeat. And so he gets in a fight with this bear and he gets the crap beat out of him. I mean, he gets like demolished, and he should have. But the thing that I took away from that story was, he got in the ring.
Right.
He wasn't, he was never supposed to win that fight. And in a lot of ways, that's a reflection of my life. Like, all of these things that happened, I was not set up to win any of those fights. But I went ahead, I got in the ring anyway. Go ahead, sorry.
No, you're fine. If it makes you feel any better, you said you weren't the greatest of writers. We're not the greatest of podcasters. We're still new to this, so bear with us. So your book touches on faith and perseverance. How did your belief shape the message you wanted readers to take away from Presiding Over Shadows?
So there's a lot of themes in the book. One of those themes is the subtitle. It's from chaos to order. And all of the chaos that exists in my life, I needed something. I was always searching for something to bring some order, to bring something back, to give me some structure. Like, each of the times in my life that things could have broke one way or the other for me, somehow they ended up breaking the right way. Otherwise, I promise you, I would not be, going to work every day in a business suit. I would be somewhere in a jumpsuit.
Yes.
And there is no doubt about that. And I was always looking for why. Really, and even searching and writing the book, there's a lot of just why questions that I wanted to answer.
Well, and
not necessarily. Go ahead.
No, you please go ahead.
No, not necessarily about who people were. Like, I could have done a genealogy and wrote, this person lived, this person died, in these dates. I cared about what happened between those two things.
Right.
And really what motivated, how did we get here? And, I know so much familial deviance has existed How do I break the cycle? Like, how do I stop that from going from my generation to the next one? How do I sort of cleanse them of those sins of the past? And there's one way, and it's through God. And so many times there were divine moments, divine intervention happened.
Yes, there were.
And it's
Are you
to
there?
be
Okay, you cut out just a little bit there.
I'm sorry. Those happenings were just too coincidental to be something that was just dumb luck.
No, and I'm a big person for signs and things like that. And I know one of the after, I believe it was your grandfather had passed, you said that you continuously were looking for signs, and the day you shot and killed the deer, unbeknownst to you, the picture had the orange cross. And I know I'm very much that way. And I like to, and I think sometimes maybe I focus too much on either trying to find a sign or kind of like you said, just wondering why. Because, and for our listeners, when you do read the book, I mean, Mike, you have been through a lot in your entire family has. And, and it is very interesting to see. And I didn't really put it all into perspective until we started to actually hear you talk about it. But you are very lucky to go to work every day in a suit and tie and not be sitting over at Potosi Prison or a federal prison or somewhere like that. I mean, I want you to talk about the biggest influences that you had that you knew. And I knew that, in the book you talk about you had your fighting, being boys, a lot of it, in my opinion, is what it was. You and your brother Kevin and Adam. I mean, you guys were being boys. But you were so hardcore on no drug use at parties. And, what made you decide? Was it just wanting to break the cycle? And in raising your kids, how are you doing that? How are you keeping them from doing, being around that or having that? Because it's there and that. You see it every single day in your job.
Yeah, so lots of topics there, but I'm gonna answer all of them, I think, in just sort of maybe just a stream of consciousness.
Okay.
So just bear with me. So, number one, starting with sort of the fighting and the deviance that started coming into my life, and I started seeing that in my life, I was experiencing very real impacts from that. I literally lost an opportunity to be the valedictorian of my class because I got into a fight, got kicked out of school, and got all zeros on all the work that I missed.
Right.
And I saw the pattern. Every one of the Randazzo men never really met a fight that they weren't willing to go, or never a challenge they weren't willing to go fight. And the way we settled disputes was not sit down and talk about it. It was, we're going to fight. And it was a fist fight. And that was sort of, I was socialized that way. Like, that was acceptable. And when you're socialized that way, you don't necessarily know better, but you see other people don't act that way. And so when I realized that, like, I'm suffering very real consequences and all of this history exists, this is a cycle that I'm beginning that I can't break unless I do something right now. And so, I recognize those things. That was just one example with regard to fighting. But drug use, there were so many people around me that were drug addicts.
Right.
I mean, literal drug dealers too, but addiction. And so I got to see people that lost everything, that literally lost their lives, like overdosed around me. And when you see that and it hits that close to home, you never want to go down that way, never go down that path, or at least I didn't. I knew that there must be something in my genetics that, number one, gave us this proclivity to just disregard the law, but also there's an addictive personality there. Yes. And if that exists, the only way to ensure that that does not happen to you is abstinence. And that's why still even today, I am such a hardcore advocate. Stay away from drugs. Like, experimental use leads to addiction more frequently than it doesn't. Right. And when that happens, I've saw people struggle their entire life. I tell a lot of personal stuff about things that have happened even more recently. Lots of stories about my own father, my dad. And my relationship with my dad has not always been great. It's probably better now than it's ever been. And it's because I've accepted that he has struggles, that he has things that he cannot overcome. And if I don't set expectations that would expect him to be something different than he is, I don't have to deal with him failing to live up to those expectations.
Wow. That's powerful. I
That
mean,
is
it really
a
is.
powerful message for sure.
Yeah. Well, that, and go ahead. Because I did
that was the real struggle.
Right.
No,
right.
and that was the real struggle for me. So when I see those things, I don't want my kids to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
But the only thing that saved me from having to deal with those, I think, in my personal life, myself, my individual life, was the fact that I witnessed those things firsthand. And so transparency with them has went a long way. I've never tried to hide any of the struggles that anyone around me is having with my kids. Lots of people will want to protect them and sort of shield them from those things and say the world exists and it's a perfect place. I actually want the opposite of that. I want my kids to know that everybody's not perfect, that their own failures they can overcome, and that realistically people that they love, their lives aren't perfect either.
Right.
They adored my grandpa Nick. My kids loved him to death. They thought he was perfect. I knew better, and he was still my hero.
Right. Well, and I think that that's where, today, and I'm not real sure where I was going to go because we've got a couple other questions here that kind of along this line, but, I think breaking that cycle is sometimes, it is the hardest thing to do. And seeing the people that we deal with every day, because in my job in EMS, it is hard to sometimes just accept that that's who people are. And to hear you say that, and I'm not going to sit here and lie. To me, you are a different person. We're held to a different standard. You're held to a different standard because you are a judge. And in my eyes, but that's how I was raised. I was raised by a school teacher, a city administrator. I was constantly in the public's eye. And I'm still trying to live, by not worrying what other people think about me or protecting my kids. Sometimes I feel like, and my kids are adult children doing the same job I do. But do you ever feel like you're just hyper vigilant on that? Or do you think the experiences you had have made it easier to say, yeah, this is how to handle raising your kids in this environment?
So I don't claim to be perfect in anything that I do. I make bad decisions and I fail every day. I want people to know that. Like I'm a judge. I was definitely not born with a silver spoon in my mouth.
Right.
In fact, probably would have been a plastic one if we could have found one. And the truth is, I have struggled in my life, and my hope is that those struggles, if I can talk to my kids about those struggles, they don't have those same failures. The only thing I want, realistically, is that my kids succeed or fail.
Yes.
On their own merits. I do not want it to be because their grandpa did this, or their dad is a judge. Right. I don't want those things to happen in their lives. And this writing, and realistically, this book was written because I wanted to preserve some stories for my kids. I mean, that at the heart of this is why I wrote this book.
And that's
I started out
because we don't have that anymore.
No, not at all. Everything's digital, and just you don't find that very often anymore in today's generation, and so on. So how do you balance compassion and accountability when you're making tough decisions? That was a question I had myself that I thought would be really interesting for our listeners to hear.
So I believe there's no cookie cutter way to do justice. If we are grouping every person together and saying this is how we handle this type of case, this is how we handle this type of person, we are failing. And our system likes to do that because lots of people believe that, saying justice is fair means every single person is treated exactly the same way. And that to me is not really fairness. No. Fairness is we consider these people where they are, and we consider their motives and their actions, and we make a punishment that's according to that.
I feel that we do the same thing in the first responder world. I was a fireman for 10 years, and Lochie's a current EMT, so I feel like we put those aspects in our jobs as well. I mean, we're not judges, but we hold ourselves accountable to that in some aspect.
Yeah, and I think it's healthy in most aspects of society to kind of do that. We have to classify things. We have to treat things in a certain way. When we come up with a good approach, that's the way we do that. In justice, it's an evolving system. It's ever evolving. Things are always changing. In the same way in EMS, I'm certain you guys deal with different problems.
Yes.
You deal with different drugs on the street because I know, because those cases would finally make it to me, and sometimes it would be a meth case, and then all of a sudden it went to, oh no, these are fentanyl overdoses.
Right.
And and the severity, and I'm not trying to minimize the severity of a methamphetamine addiction, but the severity of that fentanyl overdose is much more dramatic. And, the results of that are usually much more permanent.
Yes.
And so those things are always changing. Justice should change as well. And we should always be reflecting the norms and the values of the community that we live in. I think that people deal with addiction different, and they're starting to really evolve around dealing with addiction a little bit different than they do with drug sales and drug trafficking. And that's a big thing for me, because if I'm being honest, probably half of the cases that still come before me are possession of a controlled substance related cases, or possession of a controlled substance just themselves.
Right. And I think that talking about it too helps, and to be honest. And, the one thing I always try to keep in mind, I've always been this way, is at any point I could be that person. I have a very addictive personality, and at any point I could be that person. And I think that that's sometimes how I try to approach how I deal with people. And you really do have to just meet them where they are. And I think one thing I appreciate, Mike, about this is this to me really humanizes you. Because I do, like I said, I know you as the judge. I know you as the dad and as this person, but this does change my perspective. And I mean this definitely in a positive way. But this is a way that you are somebody that does this tough job, but you are a human. You have admitted you aren't perfect and you make mistakes. And this makes me have even more respect for you as a human being, and then as a judge in itself, but first and foremost as a human being. And I appreciate the story and getting the chance to talk to you. I mean, it's been very powerful for me hearing you tell this.
Absolutely. I'm ecstatic you were able to join us today, but I think we still got
I just had to
have some more questions for you.
Yeah, I just had to say that because I was a little worried about how this was going to go, in the fact of, we don't want to, we're not here to critique your book by no means. We wanted our listeners to hear, we want them to buy your book and find out that you are this human being. And it's been a very pleasant experience, and it's been very comfortable talking to you, and I've admire what you're doing. So with that being said too, do you think that, throughout your career, and especially in the book, you talk about personal growth through adversity. Do you think that kind of growth makes someone a stronger leader? What do you think about that?
I absolutely believe that. I will tell you that there are times in my life where I was met with some challenges that I was not ready to take on. Mm-hmm. I'll just be as totally honest. Like Amy talked about, my stepson Jacob. Mm-hmm. I met Amanda when I moved to Bismarck, and we were friends literally through childhood. I had Jacob very young. I tell that story in the book, and that was one of the things that I always thought was special. Responsibility at a very young age, that when I was 17 years old, I also took on that responsibility. I was in high school, and I started dating Amanda, who had a kid already.
Right.
And that makes somebody sort of a pariah for the most part. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And there was something that was deeply respectable about that. I think, part of that was just based upon the relationship that I had with my own mom, and about how she was a young mom, and had she not been up to the challenge, I wouldn't be here. I mean, realistically, most of the kids that were in my situation, they don't make it at all, number one. Mm-hmm. But if they do, they have very, very significant disabilities.
Right.
Somehow, and I can't think of any reason through just pure love, that didn't happen to me. And so I had this platform so many times in my life to change people's lives, mm-hmm. to make things better for someone. And I've tried to always meet that opportunity and meet that challenge. Like, I'm going to make it better for us. I talked about when I had my first biological child, I took Jacob on willingly. I became a dad when that happened, and that was wonderful to me. Uh-huh. And then when I held, my son Joey, when I held him for the first time, I made a promise that I've kept to this day, that I would change our lives, that our trajectory would change, and that he would not have the struggles that I did.
And when I read that, because you even talked that about your daughter, do you call her Gracie or Grace? Gracie.
Gracie. We call her Gracie, but.
And of course, I'm going to be emotional and say, how you worded that in saying that you held them and you thought, I'm going to protect you. And that, as a mother myself, your relationship with your mother first should never be ashamed or embarrassed about that, because my son, even though he won't admit it 100%, is very much a mama's boy. But I thought it was very neat because sometimes, and once again, I'm going to end it, as a Randazzo male, most males were not very reliable in the father department. As you know, you lived it. And I think that speaks volumes about you, that you knew that you took on a child that was not yours with a young mother. And that right there is, once again, breaking that cycle and shows the type of person. And that was kind of one of the things, the nature nurture, that I, really thought about in reading this too, is how, once again, you could have done things so much differently and you chose not to. But that was very emotional, both of those times you noted that and said that about your children.
Well,
and I think it speaks volumes for you as a human being.
Well, and again, I tried to capture sort of emotions that existed whenever those things really happen. And again, I don't have any background in writing. I despise writing. To be honest with you, 2 years ago, if you just said you're going to write a book, I'd have told somebody they're an idiot. There's no chance that's happening.
Yeah.
And so, there's lots of things that I wanted to tell to make sure that my kids knew about, really, for no other reason. Like, I didn't know if anything that happened in my life was interesting enough for other people to care.
Right.
But I thought my kids might someday.
Right.
Now, you've spent a good majority of your career serving people. What is the word service? What does that mean to you on a personal level? I know Lochie and I, if you listen back to other episodes, we kind of describe what service means to us and what we think of it. But from a judge's perspective, I would love to hear what service means to you.
Yeah, so service to me is sacrificing our own personal needs for the betterment of someone else. And that's really the best way I can sum it up. It is, we have this limited resource, and it's the most valuable one we have is time. It's giving time, real portions, real clock minutes and hours of your life to something outside of your own personal gratification. Mm-hmm. It's the sacrifice that exists. We're limited in how long we get to spend on this earth, and giving someone your time is giving them a portion of your life. And whether they appreciate it or not, you have sacrificed a portion of you, literally of yourself, to do something for them. And that is the embodiment of service. That
is a great response. I don't know that we could have came up with that one, Lochie.
No, definitely
that was a very, very great description. So how do small town values and community, like the community connections, Bismarck's a small town. I'm from Iredell. If you've ever been there, that's a small town.
Yeah.
So the community connections, how do they shape the way justice is carried out? Do the small towns, do they have a very... I'm trying to figure out how to ask this. Do small towns have does it change how you make your judgments, or does it have any effect on how justice is served?
Because I'm sure you probably have people come in front of you that know you, or
yes,
or you know them.
Yeah, and I've sent classmates to prison already.
Oh wow.
I will tell you that my belief is that when we treat people fairly, regardless of what they've done, you treat them with respect. Mm-hmm. Even when you really don't feel like they deserve it. There are child molesters that come in front of me that say, I molested this young child. Mm-hmm. And for every bit of the ounce of me that is a parent, I am disgusted.
Right.
For sure.
But the office that I hold has a certain amount of dignity that should be shown. Mm-hmm. And that is in the form of respecting litigants that appear in front of it. I have never lost sight of the fact that I should not be where I'm at. And every single day I'm on the bench, I want to make sure that I don't forget the people elected me to do a job, and I'm carrying out their will. And that is the best and most basic form of government that we can follow here in the United States is they have elected you to do a job, you should fulfill their wishes.
Right.
If their wishes are to be more harsh on certain things, you should be more harsh. And if their wishes are to say no, those things are okay. And one real example of that, in my career as a prosecutor, I was a prosecutor in Reynolds County, Missouri. Very rural, lots of hunters, lots of fishers, are fishermen, and they despise the Missouri Department of Conservation. I'm just going to put it out there. Like, if I had to go to a jury trial that involved a conservation ticket, I would have lost, period. Didn't matter what the charge was. Didn't matter how blatant it was. They despised them that much. I could not find 12 citizens in Reynolds County that I think could get together and agree to conviction to somebody when they've been charged with a conservation ticket.
Right.
So I approached those tickets different ways in Reynolds County than I would have if I had been elsewhere. Because I knew the community values there said these things are while they may be against the law, we are acceptable of a certain amount of these things in this community. And that keeping your ear to the ground and fulfilling the wishes of those people that have elected you is very important. Now, it's not more important than following the law and the Constitution. And so when those things are in conflict, I will always follow what the law says and what the Constitution says. So the judges are granted a wide degree of latitude.
So there's kind of
there's lots of judicial discretion.
There's kind of a balance you have to keep there between the law and keeping the small town. That has got to be some kind of that would be a struggle for me, trying to find that line not to cross over on either side.
That is actually, like you said, first and foremost, you have to follow the law, but that is because the people in Reynolds County, I mean, I completely understand that story. And that, once again, that is because I don't understand the job of a judge. I was never interested in that. I'm not one to, I will argue, but I don't ever, that was never anything that, I know my TV shows, but that, I think that's neat because, once again, you're taking it in consideration, the people you voted for and them as a community, who they are. And that's what's important. So another question we have here in Presiding Over Shadows, it gives the reader a look into both your personal and professional struggles. What do you hope people learn about empathy and understanding from that?
Yeah, so don't assume that you know somebody. That's the number one thing. You don't know what they're struggling with personally. You're dealing with a very small little piece, sliver of what their life is, and don't judge them based upon that. Because to be honest, I've been judged based upon these familial connections that I've had. Anyone that knew my family, knew anything about them, they formed a conclusion about me and what I was going to be before they even met me. And some of those things, including arrogance, like that's something that I've heard people have said about me for a long time too. Like, he's arrogant, he's unapproachable. And I want to change minds about that too. Like, as a judge, I don't want to be unapproachable. I don't want to be arrogant. I'm doing a job that I got elected to do, but reality's never hit me that I've deserve to actually be in that position. I always feel like I'm always just clawing and fighting to make sure that I keep that job. And that's done me well, but I don't want people to think that I don't have my own personal struggles. I struggle over cases a lot. I lose a lot of sleep over cases that come in front of me. Lots of them involve children, and I want to make sure that I'm protecting kids. That is my number one priority. If I can't protect kids, I'm not doing the job. And so how do I make sure that a child in a certain situation is adequately protected? Some of those situations are easy. Like, when crimes are committed against kids, we incarcerate somebody. But some of them are less easy. There's cases where, I preside over lots of different cases. I'm a circuit judge, so I do all felony cases at the circuit level. That would be anywhere from, E-class felonies of not paying child support to all the way to Class A felonies or unclassified felonies where people could get the death penalty. Okay. But what I also do is I preside over family law cases where children are kind of stuck in the middle of a struggle. And one of the big things that I have to always focus on is, how do I make sure that the child in this case, is adequately protected? And it's really hard to do that sometimes when I get a 3 or 4 hour snapshot of the life of some people.
Right. Well, and do you ever just feel frustration that, I know in some of the cases, because as a former educator and then working in EMS, sometimes I get so frustrated that, we report a case or whatever, and we know that it's not the best situation for the child. They're put back into the home. We're back into the home again, an EMS provider or whatever it be. Do you ever see that as a judge, that frustration that, is there ever a time that you just can't fix it? You can't protect the child. And how do you handle that?
100%. So I can tell you, I think you're a mandated reporter, and so you have to make the same calls that I have to if I know that child abuse is occurring, or if I believe that it's occurring. Not that I know, if I believe it's occurring. And so I've had to make hotlines on cases that I'm the judge on. So evidence has been presented to me that tells me that this child has been abused in court. I will make a hotline call, and the hotline will not even code that as anything but a referral, meaning we're not even going to do an investigation into this. We're going to try to see if we can give them some services. That is me banging my head against the wall. As the judge in the case, I'm saying, I've had evidence presented to me that this happened. I've judged the credibility of that, and I believe it to be credible. I've reported it to you now, and you're going to say, so what?
Yeah.
And that is so frustrating. And so luckily, there may be some other avenues that I can pursue. I can put things in judgments. I can restrict people's visitations. But the reality is that's a failure of our child welfare system. And I say that I worked as a child abuse and neglect investigator for a gap year between undergrad and law school. Like, I literally did that exact job. And so I feel like being an insider on that at some point, I have the ability to be somewhat critical about that, and I should. Well, and we need to do better. I'll just put it that way.
And we do. And that's just, I know sometimes I've been very frustrated, to know that, and we've had cases where I've hotlined and they basically said, well, the one time that they actually told them that I was the one that hotlined, I was even more frustrated because evidence was there. And, and I think that's, it's very difficult to deal with when it's not taken care of, because that's kind of my nature, to not necessarily fix, but do go above and beyond to try to fix it. And I always, in my job, I want everybody to be safe. I have you and I have a lot of the same philosophies as far as dealing with people. And, and I have lived under the same kind of, issue of who I was as a young adult, and my family and their name and what they did as jobs. And it's been a hard thing for me to sometimes be out of the shadows of, and I've always felt like I had extra pressure on me in making those decisions. And it's been frustrating when there were times I couldn't do anything, or I felt like I couldn't. And so I couldn't imagine your job as the judge, because and maybe I'm wrong, and please correct me, in my eyes, you're kind of the end all be all. You are the last step. You are the last point of, we've jumped through all the hoops, and now here we are with Judge Randazzo. He's going to fix this for us. And still, I guess your hands are tied, though.
At times, they're still tied, because there are always things that are brought up in cases that are either not admissible or they're unsupported in some way. And I have to deal with facts in court and in the law, and so certain hearsay statements are never allowed in. They would be really important for me to hear, but under the law, I can't hear them. And that's a struggle by itself too, because in small towns, you hear certain things about certain people in cases as well, like while they're ongoing, and there's no way that you can be just numb to that existing. Now, as a judge, if you can't put those things out of your mind and they weigh on you while you're hearing the case, you should recuse yourself. You should get another judge to hear the case. But if we did that on every single case in small town America, we'd never have a judge.
Right.
Right.
And so,
sure.
Well, and I guess too. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, so with all of this stuff going, and all of these things, and the how this plays, what do you do to relax? And because I know you talked about, there was a story that you guys went to the beach and it didn't have much relaxing on that trip at the beach. But, how do you now with the kids, with Amanda, with, and I know you do have some family that are still pretty close by. I know some of them have passed on. But what do you do when you look at yourself and you say, you know what, Mike, it's time to regroup? What do you do?
So there's a couple things, and I kind of talk about all those in the book too. And so but I hunt and I fish. Being in nature, a lot of times it's not about trying to harvest an animal. It's about coming to peace. Like in a very real therapeutic way, me being in nature sort of grounds me. Like it literally brings me back and centers me. I get to have conversations with God. And it's so hard to have that when this world is always moving so quickly around you. I need some sort of reprieve from that constant mental grind. But I coach youth sports, and one of my sort of respites, I've always been happy. I can't go to the ball field and be unhappy.
Right.
Now I can complain at the ball field. I've done a lot of that. But there's still some happiness there.
Get thrown out a time or two.
Yeah, and so I coach my daughter's softball team still to this day. It is my happy place. It is something that, as sort of a really convoluted relationship I've had with my dad. It was one of the places that we could speak the same language.
Right.
And we saw eye to eye and we were equal. And I have shared a love with, softball and baseball with all of my kids. And truly, 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 like, that's the most happy I am in my life at this point. I turn into like this 8-year-old kid that all I worry about is what happened in between the lines. I don't have to be in control of everything around me and sort of making sure things are not falling off the track. I just get to be part of the game. And at this point, not even really part of this game. I get to stand on the sidelines and say, hey, do a good job. Remember the things I've taught you. And there's something peaceful about that for me too. Part of it is just, this game that I've loved, and I want to make sure that I'm passing on to my kids. But part of it is just, it allows me to not be the one in control. And, I like to think I can affect the outcome, but really, I'm preparing people, and, the kids have to go out there and execute. And it's not a reflection about how much work I put in as a coach. It's a reflection about what they did, and it's based upon sort of mentorship and guidance and leadership. And those are skills that I think we need to be teaching young people. And that's how we change the next generation. That's to be honest. I feel like the biggest impact I have lots of impact on people's lives personally in the courtroom, and I don't want to minimize that at all. But the biggest impact I can have on my kids is teaching them values, and I get to do that on the ball field, and I'm happy. And it really takes away from this sort of formal presentation, Mike, and I get to just be a little kid again.
Well, and that's neat that you are able to do that. And I know, and I don't want to give too much away in the book because I definitely want people to buy it and read it.
For sure.
But I know you struggled for some time with some stomach issues. Do you want to because that's I'm not going to say it's a new thing, but it is becoming a newer diagnosis for a lot of people. Do you want to talk about that a little bit, just to kind of educate too on what happened? Because you almost, once again, you were battling life and death with that as well.
Yeah. So I had stomach troubles for a long time. It was always dismissed as anxiety or stress. And like the basic thing was, well, you need to de-stress your life. Well, I'm a lawyer. I'm in the courtroom and I'm dealing with these heavy issues. I don't have that luxury. So it was just always people, not just the medical community, people in general were just dismissive of the things that were happening. And to be honest, that was the real skill I had in life, was my mind. And I started doubting at some point that I had the mental acuity or mental faculties to continue doing what I was doing, because I kept getting told that you're causing your own demise. You're basically, getting yourself anxious, and it's causing these other problems to exist. Stop doing it and you'll be fine. And I couldn't stop. It was things that just kept happening. Lots of stomach issues, stomach cramping, to be real sort of descript, like diarrhea, bloating, and then a couple times I lost consciousness just completely, just passed out. And being in the medical community, you'll know the term, but they call it vasovagal syncope. Just basically meaning, I don't know, he passed out, like his vagal, vagal nerve.
Right. Yeah.
Responsive, and it caused you to pass out. Well, that was kind of the diagnosis, but life was not getting any better for me knowing that. I was on anxiety medication. I was, told kind of manage these things, and I really started to question my own sanity, just to be honest.
And sometimes I think that's what they want us to do, because they don't want to get to the root of the problem.
And so at some point I had to decide, am I going to try to change this?
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is another challenge in my life. Like, how do I change it? How do I change what's happening to me and and raise the quality of my life back to where it was? And, I kind of went through a lot of struggles with that. And eventually I get appointed to a case in the court by the judge to serve as a guardian ad litem. A guardian ad litem is an attorney who's appointed to serve the best interests of the children.
Uh-huh.
Well, in this case, Dad is who I meet with first, and Dad says, Mom is crazy. She says that our kid has been bit by a bug. He didn't even say tick, but he said a bug.
Uh-huh.
And now he can't eat red meat. I was like, she's crazy. Like, I literally agreed with him. I was like, she's crazy. That sounds like some kind of a conspiracy theory. She's having symptoms of schizophrenia is what I thought.
Right.
But delusions nonetheless. And so I was completely on Dad's side, but to do my job, I made sure I met with Mom.
Mm-hmm.
I met with Mom. Mom was very composed, very well put together. And Mom describes to me these symptoms that this child's going through, about how she actually has a doctor, and then gave me the name of the doctor and the phone number, and said, call the doctor, they can explain it to you. And I was like, okay, well, further investigation, call the doctor describes it, tells me about it, sort of gives me an education about it. And during that call, it kind of light switch flipped, and I said, Doc, it was an allergist, and I said, Doc, can I ask you a question about some of these things? And it sounded eerily familiar to me. Well, he said, yeah, all of those symptoms would exist. You may have this, and it's alpha-gal,
mm-hmm.
alpha-gal syndrome or alpha-gal disease, but it's an alpha-gal allergy. Come into my office and we'll test you. And so I made an appointment immediately. We went in and got tested. And at that time, I was one of the first 10,000 people in the U.S. to get tested positive for alpha-gal. So there was one lab doing testing in the whole U.S. at that time. It was in Virginia, and it took me like 6 weeks to get my lab test back. So it was a painstaking process even then. But sort of getting appointed in that case kind of saved my life.
Well, and it's kind of been your whole the signs, the coincidence, or however you worded that before, not necessarily a coincidence, but you just happen to be at the right place, talking to the right person at the right time. And
and that just sums my life up. And
it really does.
I wrote about those sort of extraordinary ones, but there are lots of things that happen like that. But that one specifically, I think it saved my life, because I was not having vasovagal syncope. I was going into anaphylactic shock.
Right.
And not getting, EpiPens or not getting epinephrine to try to help through it. Right. And my body struggled through it. And I was not the wiser after it happened, but continued to think that I was suffering from anxiety. I was having a legitimate medical emergency, and people are telling me, calm down a little bit, you're being too anxious.
Yes, I love when people tell me to calm down. That's not one of my favorite things to be told. But we're going to kind of wrap this up here, I think, Tyler. But we do have a couple more things just to kind of wrap this up. First and foremost, I have enjoyed our conversation this afternoon.
Very much so.
And now, have you done a book signing at the Bismarck Coffee Shop yet?
I did. I actually took place yesterday.
Okay, we were talking about that because I was out of town, but I knew that it was happening. So, but if at some point I would like to meet up with you and have you sign my book.
Absolutely. There's another one in the works. I don't have details finalized yet, so I don't want to throw a bunch of details out there yet.
Okay.
But it will be on my Facebook page. I will advertise it and try to get with people. And if nothing else, anyone who has a book that wants me to sign it, if they just get with me, I will figure out a way to sign it somehow.
Okay.
I just appreciate the fact that people are interested enough in my story to read it. I certainly can do my job and inscribe it with, some kind of a note that says, thank you for, your support, or thank you for your help. And, I love doing that, actually. It gives a personal note to my story. And
right. Well,
I enjoy doing that. But
well, and so what do you
go ahead, sorry.
What do you hope that people will take away from hearing your story?
you hit literally the hope. I mean, you hit the word perfect. I hope that people can take away from this story that you can be greater than the sum of your parts.
Wow. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Somehow that there's hope for whatever your situation is, no matter how bleak or however dire. Life can get better. You have to put in the work, and that's also sort of the message is like you have to sacrifice. Things don't get handed to you in life. The sacrifices you make are multiplied, and they come back, in real ways in your life. And sometimes that's educationally or financially, but in other ways, it's just holistically. It's just the sacrifices you make. You may have some hard suffering times. Those will lead to better and more enjoyable times. And that's been the case in a lot of ways in my life. I do want to say just one overarching thing about you all and your podcast. Thank you for shedding a light on first responders. And we didn't talk at all about my wife Amanda, and that's fine. She doesn't want the spotlight, but I do want to say just something about her. She's a police officer by trade. Kind of lucked her way into that. Literally on a whim, went to the police academy, graduated, and has been a police officer for a lot of years, almost 2 decades now.
Wow.
She's a first responder, and they deal with, we talked a lot about my life and the things I have to deal with in the courtroom, but first responders get to see this carnage, these real bad situations when they're happening. I get to hear about the remnants of it, and you all shedding a light on that is so important. I used to joke with the police officer wives, because almost everybody that was in policing when she started was a male, so their wives were the spouses. And so I became a police officer wife because of Amanda.
Yes.
And I used to joke with those people, but one of the things that we all had in common was this comfort when our spouse came home at night and you heard the ripping of Velcro.
Oh, we cut out again.
It meant that they were safe.
Yes.
It meant that they were safe. And that feeling of safety at that point, it's indescribable. If you haven't lived it, like knowing that they just went through, some hostage situation where bullets are flying back and forth, and they get to come home and take that vest off and leave that day, there is no way that I can describe how comforting that is.
Well, and I think both Lochie and I, Mike, can both tell you that. Like I said, I was a firefighter for 10 years. Lochie's a current EMT. She was a fireman with me. We were actually both on Bismarck. And that's kind of why we opened up this platform on this podcast. Was first responders don't get the light that they deserve, especially here in our local communities. Some of our local communities are really good with them. However, some are not. And I really think that we need to give them more credit than what they get, and that's what this podcast is all about. We cover mental health, what you deal with mentally, what first responders deal with mentally, and it's just a safe place for them to open up and come visit with us. It helps them talk. If nothing else, we're not therapists, but we're kind of crazy, but that's besides the point. But I do encourage your wife, Amanda, if she would ever want to come visit with us and join the Voices of our Valor series. I almost messed that up again, Lochie.
That's all right.
But I do encourage her to come and reach out to us and talk with us, because I'd love to hear her. I actually ran calls with her when she worked in a close vicinity to where I was at. But I would love to talk with her and have her come join us here. But I really do appreciate you having this conversation with us today. I learned things about a judge that I would have no clue about if we wouldn't have talked to you.
Well, and once again, Mike, I really like the fact that this has humanized you, and I did enjoy the book. It was some very funny stories in there, and then just hearing, because being in Bismarck, that was the Randazzo family, the ties, the mafia, all this stuff that was said. And I know I wasn't originally from Bismarck, and they're a tough crowd to get to know, but I do know that you have done very well with your children and your wife, and I admire you for what you're doing. Can you let our listeners know how to stay in contact with you? Are you going to write another book? You said you have a Facebook page, but how can they be in touch with you and learn more about the book and just you in general?
Yeah, so I have a Facebook page. It's Michael Randazzo. I'm on Twitter. It's at Randazzo Law. I'm on Instagram at Randazzo Law. I can't use those mediums so much to talk about personal stuff,
Right.
Because that usually has something to do with cases, and so I do put a lot of like the book stuff on there.
Okay.
So that's a great way to get in contact with me. Like, reach out, send me a private message, and I'm responsive to that there.
Okay.
I will also say that as far as writing, anything further, I don't know what the cards hold. If you'd asked me 2 years ago, as I said, I'd have told you that I'd never write a book. There may be another book at some point that may be a little bit more case specific and some of the kind of interesting things that I've experienced. I'm not sure. Writing the book was a lot, but it was therapeutic, and I don't know if that same experience exists when I talk about other people's lives.
Well, and I know that that's one of the things with the mental health that that's one of the things I use too is writing. And sometimes I write it and I tear it up, or I even take it out and burn it in the burn pit. But writing is very therapeutic. And I appreciate you coming today and sharing this. And we're going to put the link on our page here too, that people can reach out and purchase the book. I definitely encourage people to read your story, because it definitely shines a light on who you are, and speaking with you today, it has made it even brighter, and I've definitely enjoyed our conversation today.
For sure. And Mike, again, I as well, thank you so much for joining us here on Midwest Mayhem. Like I said, we support first responders. I know you're not right there in the field, but you deal with the same things that we deal with, so you're just as important. Again, I couldn't imagine being a judge. Could you, Lochie?
No.
And we appreciate your service, man. I hope when it's time for re-election, you get re-elected. I know I'd want you to be a judge on my case if I ever needed one. But again, thank you so much. And I really hope we can reconnect again. We can have you here maybe on another episode in the next year or so.
Maybe you and Amanda could come together.
That too.
I would love to do it. I can't speak for her because she doesn't really know the kind of, I hate to say it, but the spotlight sort of that is involved in it.
Yeah.
I've learned to sort of embrace it. You're given a platform and you may be able to change someone's life.
Yes.
And I try to take that opportunity when I get a chance to.
And then go
ahead.
That's the big struggle we deal with, trying to get first responders, because a lot of them don't want limelight, but I want them to feel like they're safe and for their story to be shared. She doesn't have to be, we don't even have to name her. She can be anonymous. We also have that option as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will tell you, we'll have that discussion, but I would be happy to come on anytime that you think I can offer something insightful or offer, help in some way. And I really, and I mean this deeply, a lot of podcasts trying to promote this book. This one's a local one for me. Interested, and I appreciate what you're doing, but more so what you're doing really hits close to home for me, and so it's been my privilege to speak with you guys today.
Well, thank you, Mike. That means a lot. It really does.
That's great feedback that I'm not sure we've gotten so far yet, and we greatly appreciate that very much.
Yes,
but
thank you.
Keep it up.
Thank you. We'll be sure to keep sharing your stuff. Again, we're going to put Mike's link on for our listeners. We're going to put his Amazon link for his book on there. I believe you can get a hardback copy. Lochie right in front of us has a softback copy. You can also get a Kindle version, I believe. Is that right, Mike?
Yep. Yeah, so it's available in hardback, softback, Kindle, and actually audiobook. I don't read it in the audiobook, so I'm not real happy with that, because when I read it, it's in my voice, and when it's in someone else's voice, the words don't sound the same to me. Mm-hmm. And so I have tried to warn people about the audiobook. If you expect that you're going to hear my voice, it's not mine. A professional voice actor got to do that. They told me I wasn't qualified. So.
Oh, well,
I'd rather listen to you.
Me too. I would have too. So, well, have a good rest of your afternoon, and just keep us in mind. We will be contacting you again, I'm sure, to have you on, and we wish you the best success with this book.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much.
Yep, thank you so much. And you ever decide you want to come back on again before we reach out, be sure to reach back out to us, and we'll have you back on.
I will for sure. Thank you both.
Hey, thank you so much. Have a great evening.
All right. You too. Bye-bye.
And that was Judge Michael Randazzo from Iron County. Lochie, you want to go over... actually, never mind, because I forgot it. I was going to say let's go over some of the things we didn't get to talk about with him, but... I forgot what I was going to go over.
And I just want to say, I was a little bit I mean, we've talked. I was a little bit apprehensive because I didn't want to, first and foremost, I didn't want to offend him.
For sure.
In no way, because that is a serious job that he has. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. I mean, I knew, but I do encourage the book. I think he was very transparent, very honest. He talked about not being the best of a writer, but it is told, and especially after really talking to him, this book is told in words, and it's very humanizing. And I think that I don't know, I have a different perspective now.
I do too. I'm very glad we got to talk with him.
Yes, I am too.
That was incredible. That was one of the coolest interviews we've got to do so far, other than Joe Exotic. We can't skip old Joe. Hey, you know what? He's a judge. You think we can get him to?
Well, he did say that Donald Trump was going to free him. Maybe we can add Michael Randazzo.
There we go, Mike.
Well.
If when you go to listen to this, brother, if you could help us out with our buddy Joe Exotic, we did an interview with him. He's going to need some help. I don't know that you can help him, but the thoughts counts. Joe, if you ever listen to this, we're trying, brother. But we. That was just great. I don't have any other words to say.
No, and it was. And I really do encourage people to read his book, and especially the local people.
Absolutely.
Because I do know, I mean, some of the stuff he talked about in there, the Randazzos, it was a hard name to be successful in Bismarck, but they are.
Yeah.
And it does tell his story is very interesting.
For sure. So. He was absolutely amazing, and I'm so thankful he called in. We did have some technical difficulties, so I'm going to edit a little bit of that out, but we'll get that fixed up.
Well, and what I do want to add one last thing, that him talking about, he makes reference to teachers that were important to him. Him thanking us, the first responder, the platform we have, and that means a lot. That's
for sure
a great thing.
I didn't expect that. It touched my heart a little bit.
Well, and he is very humble.
Very, very humble. For sure. Very, very humble.
And I love how he is, just the answers he gave us on how he deals with things and the decisions and making as a judge. This one's going to be one I reflect on for a while.
I agree. It's kind of like your first episode I've done with that. I reflected on it for quite a while.
Right.
So we're just going to wrap that up with Judge Michael Randazzo. A couple things I do want to run by everybody. Don't forget, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Podcastle, and our website, www.midwestmayhempodcast.com. You can go on there, click listen, and you can listen to all of our episodes if you don't have any of the other apps to listen to us on. I encourage you all to follow us, stay connected with us here on Facebook. We also have a TikTok. I think Lockie's going to run that at some point once we get that all figured out. But I look for us to make some funny TikToks hopefully here in the future.
Oh yeah.
Just so everybody knows, we do have headshots in the future making. I'm excited for those. Shout out to E&R Photography. They're going to do those for us. I cannot thank her, Liz, with E and R.
E-R-N-N. E-R-N.
We can't talk today. We're all having strokes. But again, stay connected with us. Follow us on Facebook. Follow us on TikTok. Don't forget, we do have merch for sale. Hats are $20. We do have snapback and fitted. Hoodies we have for $30. Multiple colors available. Go to the order form. You'll be able to see all the color hoodies and hats and all that good stuff. I'm looking very forward to seeing everybody rep the Midwest Mayhem merch.
Yes.
The shirts, I think, turned out all right, so I'm hoping the hoodies and stuff do too. Again, we're going to go over a couple more things for what we got coming up, and let's see, we got the Halloween special coming up next week. This episode releases this upcoming Friday. If you're listening to this right now, it is Friday. And then we've got the Halloween special coming out on Halloween. It drops on Halloween the 31st. I am very excited for that. I still don't know exactly what we're going to do. So if anybody has any spooky local stories, I'd love to hear those because I'd love to talk about that. I'm a very crime, historic, scary type of guy. I love watching that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
that kind of stuff.
That'd be fun if people wanted to call in too.
That'd be cool too. If you want to call in, make sure you call into our message, our Facebook page, or message Mary Lochie, and we'll get you on the phone here with us. And hopefully you won't cut out like we've had on some other technical difficulty episodes. But again, Halloween episode coming up. Voices of Valor, guest number 3, Sadie Harlan is going to be joining us, EMT of the Washington County Ambulance District. I'm very excited for that one. And we got some more coming up in the near future, but we're just a little too far away to mention who they are.
Yes.
Are you excited for a couple?
I'm very excited.
Good
stories.
Yes. I had one gentleman message me about a week ago. Actually, I reached out to him. He's going to be joining us here soon, but I'm not going to reveal that one just yet. I think we're going to save that for a little bit later on. However, this has been Midwest Mayhem Podcast. We are the home of opening up a platform for first responders, home of Voices of Valor. And I'm Tyler.
And I'm Lochie.
And we are doing a good thing, I do believe. We will talk to you guys soon. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. If you did, go to our Facebook page, leave us a review, and we will catch you guys soon. Thank you so much.